committee.
For it, just remind members, electronic devices should be switched off, excluding the tablet devices you're using to view your pack. Members, just a brief overview of today's business. SL1, statutory paternity pay, statutory adoption pay and statutory shared parental pay. An LCM and enterprise bill will be a departmental briefing. Departmental briefings on the career strategy and on steps to success. Members, at this point in time, I have apologies from Tom Buchanan and Fran McCann. No apologies. Okay, members, if not, chairperson's business, just under chairperson's business, could I thank many members for their contributions yesterday to our inquiry debate. I thought it was a very good piece of work, and hopefully that puts it well into the public limelight, that we can get some good out of the work that we did. Members, draft minutes of our meeting on the 24th of February are page 6 of the pack. Members, are you agreed that those are a pre-record of that meeting?
Yeah.
Silent tonight, there. Okay, members, matters arising are listed at page 12. Members content with those matters arising as listed?
Yeah.
And members, moving on, correspondence is at page 16 and also tabled at page 3. Members, tabled at page 5 is correspondence from the University and College Union requesting to brief the committee on redundancies at Ulster University. Members, are you content? We may have space in our last meeting on the 15th of March.
Yep.
Content to include that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, members, action under correspondence actions suggested agreed.
Agreed.
Members, page 34 is one invitation listed. If members wish to attend the event, can you please inform a member of the committee staff who will make arrangements. Members, forward work programme then is page 37. It's the draft forward work programme up until the 16th of March. Other briefings may be scheduled as they arise. Members, the Minister during the debate yesterday stated that he would give us a response to the committee recommendations in the requirement report. Are members content to agree to schedule this briefing for our meeting on the 16th? Okay, members, just to note as well, there is a special sitting for the committee on the 7th, Monday, to deal with the LCM, but we'll talk about that later on. Okay, members, moving on, agenda item 7 is at page 39, is an SL1, statutory paternity pay, statutory adoption pay and statutory shared parental pay amendment regulations, Northern Ireland 2016. Members, the Department proposed to make the statutory rule under powers conferred by the Social Security Contributions and Benefits Northern Ireland Act 1992. The Department has advised that it believes that the SR would require the concurrence of HMRC and will be subject to negative procedure. Since the introduction of the new shared parental rights in 2015, the Department for Business Innovation and Skills has become aware of a discrepancy between, on the one hand, how the continuity of employment test is framed in legislation for statutory paternity pay, statutory adoption pay and statutory shared parental pay, which does not allow the first week of the 26 weeks period to be rounded up, and how the continuity of the employment test is framed in the legislation which governs statutory maternity pay, which does not allow the rounding up of the first week of the relevant 26-week period. There is no policy justification for different treatments, which only came to light after the introduction of shared parental leave and pay. This means that a very small number of employees who change jobs in the first week of the relevant 26-week period are technically not currently entitled to statutory paternity pay, statutory adoption pay and statutory shared parental pay, even though they would have been entitled to statutory maternity pay. Officials have drafted a statutory rule which should address this anomaly to allow rounding up the first week of the relevant 26-week period for these types of family-related statutory pay. The SR is currently with the Department's legal advisor for clearance. If such clearance is not obtained in good time, or if HMRC state that concurrence cannot be supplied in time, the making of the SR may be delayed until the next mandate, in which case the Appropriate Assembly Committee will be appraised by way of a further SL1. Members, are you content with the proposals for that statutory rule?
Yes. Yeah.
Content? Okay. Members, moving on then, agenda item 8 is the departmental briefing on the LCM and Enterprise Bill. It's tabled at page 11, is the departmental briefing paper, and the LCM is tabled at page 15. Can I just welcome Mr Michael Gold, Assistant Director for Youth Policy and Strategy Division, and Mrs Joyce Rutherford, New Initiatives Unit.
Thank you, Chairman.
Michael, Bush, you're very welcome. The committee just received this LCM late last night in this table, so if you could just talk us through it and the implications, would be appreciated.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for agreeing to have the briefing at such short notice. The Department is very grateful to the committee for their understanding on this issue. There was no disrespect intended by the Department in terms of the processes and procedures to bring the matters to the committee's attention. But like other devolved administrations in the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland has been brought into this legislative process at a relatively late stage. I'm joined by Joyce this morning. We continue to work with DFP to ensure that Northern Ireland obtains a fair return on this new tax on employers. With your consent, we'll outline why we need a legislative consent motion, what it will involve and the time pressures we are experiencing, and then we'll be happy to take questions from members. If we go back to why do we need a legislative consent motion, basically we need a legislative consent motion so that we can obtain data from HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, who will be the organisation which will lift the levy from all employers from April 2017. The apprenticeship levy has been introduced by the UK Government, in particular by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and they wish to raise a levy on all employers, both in the private and public sector, and that money will be used to pay for apprenticeships in England, and then they will give the devolved administrations a return on their investment, or the investment has come from those regions, through what we hope will be the Barnett formula. But in order for us to understand how much Northern Ireland has paid into the levy pot as a whole, the UK levy pot as a whole, we have to have the powers to share data with HMRC. And that will require an adjustment clause in the Enterprise Bill, which is going through the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And therefore, we need a legislative consent motion here in Northern Ireland so that we are able to have the powers to share the data with HMRC. In many ways, it's a technical issue, but it's an important issue, because without those powers, we would be disadvantaged. Both Scotland and Wales are in the same position as ourselves and are currently putting through legislative consent motions through their Assembly and through the Scottish Parliament. I'll hand over to Joyce just to talk about some of the detail of what it will involve and how it relates to the levy itself, but it's mainly focused on the Enterprise Bill.
Yes, as Michael has said, the Enterprise Bill will be the legislative framework to take this data sharing forward. There are a small number of clauses relating to Northern Ireland being proposed to extend powers to us to enable us to data share. As Michael has said, the data sharing will be predominantly from HMRC to the devolved authority in Northern Ireland, which will in turn be the new Department of the Economy. And we may need to give HMRC some information in order to get that data back, the data that we require back. So it is very important that the clauses are included in the bill so that we're not disadvantaged in any way in terms of data, being able to access data relating to what our employers put in. There are only the data sharing clauses involved in the Enterprise Bill relating to the apprenticeships, so we are comfortable that this information will be beneficial to us and that there is no scope for HMRC to interrogate the department for data, that it's more of a one-way transfer.
In terms of the timescales, we're under considerable pressure because the Enterprise Bill will go through Parliament in London and is scheduled to go for royal assent in April of 2016. And before, if we don't have the clauses approved through the legislative consent motion, those clauses will be removed within the next few weeks, and we will not be in a position to gain the data, and we won't have the transparency on what Northern Ireland employers, both in the public and private sector, have contributed to the levy pot as a whole, and therefore we'll be unsighted as to exactly who has paid what and how much we can get back, so that we can get a fair redistribution of the levies back to those who have put in Northern Ireland.
Michael, just so I'm perfect, that's 0.5%, and I think, I don't know whether you used it, inadvertently you described it as a tax. It is a tax on employers. We've no way out of this. This is coming.
It's set by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He has decided that the best way to raise money to add to the Exchequer as a whole is to put a tax on employers. It's going to be on both private sector employers and public sector employers. There will be a levy of 0.5%, not 0.5%, and those who have an annual pay bill of more than £3 million a year will end up being net contributors, and those with a pay bill of less than £3 million a year will be able to draw down money for the training of apprenticeships. The tax is predicated on a target which the Chancellor and the Minister, the Secretary of State for Business, Innovation and Skills has set in England. They wish to have 3 million new apprentices within this Parliament. So by 2020, they want to have created 3 million new apprenticeships, and they want to use this levy to pay for the training of those apprenticeships in England. It's a reserved matter. To go back to your original question, it is a reserved matter, and therefore it's not within our gift.
That's LCM, so we can see how much money's been collected from Northern Ireland employers, and then how much we actually get back.
That's correct.
But my understanding, then you say, it'll come back as a Barnett consequential.
We're working with DFP and with Treasury to see exactly how it will come back on it, but they have said that there should be a fair and equitable redistribution back to the devolved administrations. And in the initial discussions we've had with them, we've agreed that the Barnett formula would be the most advantageous for Northern Ireland. We continue to work with DFP on the detail of that.
And when this money comes back to Northern Ireland, that's not a ring fence for apprenticeships or traineeships. It can be used for anything. Is that correct?
It will not be hypothecated, so it will not be ring fenced. But if the intention, if the spirit of the levy is that it would be used for training and for apprenticeships.
Private, public, government as well?
Government, public bodies, arm's length bodies, and for the department that will include the further education colleges and universities. All public and all private sector bodies will be levied.
So the likes, Bardi has just announced a cessation of its apprenticeship programme. So it will be levied at 0.5% of its wage bill, but have no apprentices.
That's correct.
They draw down that money.
That's correct. That's the danger, and that's why I think when I said that this was a tax, that this word shows where the company can't, or the business model. Bombardier recruited typically 40 apprentices a year. On the amount of money they will actually be levied and pay in, they would have to probably take 3 times that number of apprentices on just to be able to take back the amount of money they paid in for training.
And it can be used CPD. I suppose the central government can use it for. Well, when it comes back to our executive, they can use it for whatever they want.
Well, we have to work that out, and we're in discussion with DFP colleagues about how the money would be redistributed both to the public sector and to the private sector. In England, they're going to use a digital voucher scheme, so that an employer, a private sector company, will have a digital account and will be able to see how much money they've paid in. But those digital vouchers will have a shelf life. So after a certain amount of time, if they're not used, the money will be taken then and used to pay for others.
Okay. Phil?
Hi, I really wanted to see clarity that we were only discussing the provision of information here, and that there was no commitment on the department and what the money will be spent on. So I think you've answered that in response to Robert. The other issue I want to deal with is in your briefing paper at paragraphs 10 and 11. It talks about it'll allow HMRC to disclose information to a department. Does it actually put a duty on HMRC to give the information, or is it merely enable the department to request it?
It'll give us the powers to share data with them. At the minute, we don't have any powers to do that. They can't disclose any information to us. What this will do is will give us the power, the legislative power, for them to share the information. They will be under an obligation to do so, along with Scotland and Wales.
Okay, so there will be a duty on them to share it?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Gerard.
Thanks, and thanks, Michael, for the briefing. Just to say, obviously, in terms of how this is going to come back, you know, taking on board the fact that it is a predetermined matter, it's a reserved matter, we don't have a lot of control over it. But I suppose you would be concerned when you hear the words of fair and equitable return. You know, given the levels of disadvantage here and the particular challenges that we have around getting younger people into apprenticeships and employment, I think it's very important, Chair, that we do whatever we can here within our own executive to try and ensure that this money, when it does return, is earmarked and ring-fenced for people in that particular area. So it's about doing whatever we need to do to make sure that we shape that at our end of it within the constraints of knowing what's being determined. But obviously, in relation to the sharing of information, that, as you say, is something that's been divine from above. We have to do that. But it's just to be sure that, that it truly is going to be fair and equitable, and that it's actually meeting the needs that we have in terms of trying to get people into those apprenticeships, because it's so important.
Well, clearly that'll be a matter for the executive whenever the new executive is formed. But with the new skills, with the new apprenticeship strategy, we're very keen to see apprenticeships being expanded, and by raising the level that they're taught at, and also allowing them to go into the higher level apprenticeships. So we'd be very keen to see more apprentices taken on, and employers, particularly in new sectors in the economy, the knowledge economy, to take on more and more apprentices.
Because I just think there would be something inherently wrong about money that's been taken effectively as a tax. And I'm very pleased for the 3 million apprenticeships that there's going to be in England or whatever, but you know, there is a very acute need. I'm thinking about in my own constituency of Foyle, where there's a very high number of people that are economically inactive, and we desperately need those apprenticeships to get young people back into employment. So in my considered view, there's a moral imperative there that we really do that, and that the most powerful statement is given that any money that does come back should be used for that purpose.
Michael, have you a gut feeling yet about how much we're talking about?
We've made some estimates, and in particular DFP are currently working with the public sector departments and their arm's length bodies to try and get a more accurate understanding of how much we're talking about. Our initial estimates coming from DETI and from Dell economists, the total could be in the region of £42 million a year.
Okay.
But we'll have a much more accurate understanding of that, Chair, once we do the analysis.
Yeah. Okay, Anna.
So does that mean we should get £42 million back to Northern Ireland to support apprenticeship?
Well, our understanding is that we would get at least that. If this is where it becomes very technical, in that the Barnett formula, it depends how they model the Barnett formula, and that's why we're working with DFP colleagues to try and maximise the return for Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Okay.
I presume Northern Ireland, we're not going to have a very large number of private companies having to pay for the 0.5%.
Well, our calculations are that if companies pay the median wage, then any company with about 125 employees or more would be eligible. If they pay the minimum wage, we think the company numbers are about 225. So anybody employ more than that. So I think there'll be quite a few. And if we look at some of the sectors like information technology, where there may be less people but higher wages, then those numbers change again.
Right. Yes, it's not on the number of people, isn't it? It's on the pay.
It's on the annual pay bill. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Michael, Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, just as I mentioned earlier, we have scheduled a special sitting on Monday. Kathy, do you want to?
11:30 in room 144 to discuss and agree the draft report for this LCM.
Members,
So it's important that we have at least 5 there to get it agreed. It should only take 5 to 10 minutes.
And just agree it now, no?
We haven't written yet.
I'm happy to vest those powers. I'm happy to vest those powers in Kathy.
I trust you.
I full faith in you, Kathy.
And then And the debate is the next day.
And the debate's the next day, it's scheduled for the next day. The Minister is going to suspend standing orders, Standing Order 42, which is there has to be 5 working days between committee report and the Minister moving the LCM.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
And it's all right for him to do that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably he knows.
Okay, members, moving on swiftly, I think, on that point. Agenda item 9 is departmental briefing on career strategy. Members, is page 44 of your packs, the departmental briefing paper, and page 52 is the departmental correspondence preparing for success 2015-2020. Can I just welcome Ms. June Ingram, Director of Skills and Industry, Mr. Nigel Carey, Career Service, and Mrs. Frances O'Hara, Head of Careers Division. Delivery, okay.
Thank you very much.
June, you leading, yeah?
Yes, I'm lead off. And apologies, Angela is caught in the snow somewhere as well, so we're slightly earlier than we had anticipated, but hopefully she'll be able to join us if that's okay.
No problem.
Thank you. So I'll just introduce and hand over to Frances. We've provided you with the paper and we would like to give you an update on the progress that we've made against the Career Strategy Action Plan for this year, going from our last briefing for you. We have also been able to publish and agree the refreshed Preparing for Success Career Strategy 2015 to 20, and a copy of that should be with you as well, so we're happy to take questions on that at the same time. So I'll hand over then to Frances really just to take through progress on the action plan.
Okay, thanks June. Morning Chair. Yes, as June says, we were pleased to have the career strategy now finally out, and we rushed that through so that the members would have it in their packs for today's papers, so that if you do want to ask us any questions about it, we're happy to do that. The purpose of today, before that, was to really give you an update on where we are with the 15-16 action plan, which both ministers agreed last year, so that we keep the momentum going in terms of the improvements in the careers education and guidance service. So if it's okay, Chair, I'll take you through the main projects, and then we'll take questions on any detail on them. The first project, the quality assurance and accountability framework, there are 3 main aspects of that we've been working on this year. The first is the introduction of the statutory duty on the department, which members will be aware we put through the employment bill. So we're very pleased that that's actually got through. We're very grateful to the committee for their advice and guidance on that, and their support in getting it through on the employment bill. So for the first time, that will place careers in statute, and the department will have a duty going forward to provide impartial advice, which is in the best interest of the person receiving it. So that's the first thing on that project. The next other thing we wanted to work on this year was the introduction, or the establishment rather, of the Careers Advisory Forum, which both ministers are very keen to make sure is established, so that employers, educationalists, parents' representatives and other key stakeholders have a voice in terms of how careers education and guidance is delivered going forward. One of the key roles of the Careers Advisory Forum will be to oversee employer education engagement, both at a strategic and at a local level. The forum has just met once and it's due to meet again fairly shortly, but and we'll be developing a work plan so that they can deliver against the key areas that the ministers want them to focus on. But early indications with the people around the table would suggest that there's a great willingness there to address this issue of better engagement between employers and schools. And then the third aspect of that project that we've been working on is the publication, collation really, and publication of key performance data. To date, we have focused largely on activity data, and we're not alone in that. Career services across the world, that tends to be what they concentrate on. But we know that there's an expectation, and certainly the recommendation from your inquiry report was that you need more data in terms of looking at the actual impact that careers education and guidance has and the outcomes for the individual, for the economy and wider society. So those are the things that we're working on, collating that data and publishing that, and we should have some of that data by the end of this month, so that people can see really what, first of all, what they can expect from the system, but also how we're delivering against that expectation. So that's the first project. The second project then is the work experience project, and that is where we want to establish a database which will give fair access to all the work experience opportunities that employers are prepared to put forward. Working with the Careers Advisory Forum, we know that employers are very keen to offer work experience and to make it more meaningful, but they have a problem with lots of people contacting them all at the same time, all wanting placements within a very narrow window. So we need to streamline that service for employers. We need to make sure it's more fair for young people so that everyone can avail of the opportunities, irrespective of family background or social connections or whatever. And we really want to use the work experience database to widen out the career aspirations of young people, raise ambition, and maybe challenge some misconceptions that some young people may have about particular work areas, so that in fact, a lot of the jobs that we know of the future, the job titles, even if they currently exist, and many of them don't, are very bewildering. You wouldn't necessarily know what the job entails. So we have to help young people with that, help them navigate their way through the labour market information to know where the job growth areas are of the future. So that's a key piece for us. The database in its initial stage should be up and running from September. That'll be the first phase of that, and that will draw together the existing work experience providers and their employers onto one single platform. And then from that we'll build on that, getting more employers to upload their vacancies directly onto it. There's work to do there in making sure that the whole system is safe and everything is appropriate, but we think we can do it. The third project then is the e-delivery. Sorry if I haven't got these in the right order, I maybe haven't, but the e-delivery and website project. That's where we want to modernise services, listening to what people have told us about the way they want to access services now, both young people and adults. We're using online a web chat service so that people don't have to necessarily make an appointment to come and see us. They can have an instant messaging approach, and they can do that anonymously as well. They don't necessarily need to divulge details about themselves. And we've found, and Nigel, my colleague who's here, leads on this, but we've found that in other areas the anonymity behind that is very attractive, especially to people in work at the minute who want to upskill and maybe don't necessarily want to divulge that to their employer, and also people who are concerned about their job security, etc. The web chat is an ideal service for them to engage with us. So Nigel can give us more detail on that if you need that, but early indications on that are very promising, that we're getting a lot of people coming through that way, and we really want to develop that over the coming years. The fourth project then is the accessing impartial advice. And that's really where we want to not take our eye off the ball in terms of business as usual. We want to build on the gains that we've made over the past few years with the joint strategy with the Department of Education. And we want to make sure that in addition to seeing virtually all of the Year 12 pupils and making sure the Year 10 young people are aware of the implications of subject choices, etc., promoting STEM and tackling the issue of the gender imbalance, for example. We also want to look at disadvantaged groups and make sure that we are getting giving a really good service to the people who have barriers, whether they be health or a learning difficulty barrier, or whether they're social or family issues. So that's a challenge for us going forward, but it's something that we're very committed to, and that's Project D. So, Chair, that's a quick run through the projects in terms of where we are, and we're happy to take any questions.
Okay. Okay. Can I just, phase 1, what was actually delivered in phase 1? How many teachers were on that programme?
Phase 1 of the CPD,
Yeah,
Department of Education, we wouldn't have those figures.
you don't have that. No, okay, sorry.
It would be Department of Education that was
Right.
responsible. But I think from what they've told us, the CPD rollout was made available to, or the modules were made available to all the careers teachers in the schools, and it was a question of just logistics, how many could come forward and avail of those, but they were available to them all.
Yeah, I suppose, Francis, that's the question, being available and how many availed, I
Yes,
think is a
yes.
more pertinent answer. I suppose, can we write or get those figures from Dee, because I think that's one of the things that come out of our inquiry, that it's important that the teachers have the skills to deliver those. You talk about a robust LMI will be available online. When's that?
We have the Minister launched the Skills Barometer at the end of last year, November of last year. And the findings of the Skills Barometer will then be made available in a user-friendly format. So we're working on that at the minute, but the Skills Barometer, as it sits at the minute, is already there. In addition to that, we've produced a series of fact sheets, and they're available online at the minute, so that there is labour market information there, but we feel we can go much further with the findings of the Skills Barometer.
So if you can go further, then it wouldn't be robust and
At the minute, it's as good as we can make it, but we've certainly more to do on that in terms of making the rich findings that come out of the Skills Barometer, making those available in a user-friendly format. That's a significant piece of work that we need to do. But there is stuff there available, but we feel it's still the Skills Barometer, the way it's presented at the minute, is still slightly too technical for a lot of people to understand.
in regards to work experience then, Live 2016, what will that look like?
What we'll have by September is a database which all young people will be aware of. Hopefully we'll make them aware that it's there for them to interrogate for work experience opportunities. It'll pull together the existing opportunities that are being offered through the two main work experience providers that the Department of Education currently fund. And because at the minute that system isn't online, so young people don't necessarily know what is available, what employers are offering. We know that there are a lot of employers offering really good placements. We also know there's a lot of employers who could offer more placements. We need to look at the quantity of placements plus the quality of placements, and we need to make sure that they're offered across the entire area, particularly in the growth sectors. So what we're focusing on from September, what it'll look like in September, is a pulling together for the first time of all the available work experience opportunities that are there through the two existing providers, and then we're building that.
Okay. There's talk of two schools that participate in the pilot. Do you have information on those, or is that the as well?
Two schools participating
in the pilot.
Is that the web conferencing pilot?
No, I don't think so, no.
That's page 53, sorry, point 6. Sorry, we'll come back to it.
Okay, it's the multi-channel.
Oh, it's a multi-channel approach,
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
We currently haven't started that project yet. We're working on the web chat. We've put our focus into the web chat first of all, which allows clients to access careers advice. As Francis said, having to come to an office or make an appointment. That started in November. It's so early days, but it's been very positive so far. It's going to pilot for a year, and we'll evaluate and see if we're going to roll out further after the end of that pilot year. We are hoping to do the two schools thing that you're talking about, Chair, is in relation to a kind of a video conferencing with schools. We haven't started that yet. We hope to start in April with two schools.
In regards to the web chat service, Nigel, you know, it'll be what sort of numbers, if you've been running since November, is it something that has been picked up in large numbers, or?
It is. It's still fairly early days. It's been marketed through Facebook and Twitter. So we're getting about sort of 125 sort of chats a week. A month over that. It's part of a new career digital hub we have based in Dungannon. So we're directing all telephony, all web chat and all email careers guidance through this one hub. So it's averaging about, there's 4 staff in there at the moment, because it's early days. It's averaging about 1,000 contacts a month, which is quite a good start. And we hope to, from next month onwards, roll out some schools as well with year 13 and year 14 pupils, which means they can go on as well and access the web chat service from school. If that works out, we'll roll out in all schools.
Okay. Can I, the 4 people who are there, qualifications, what sort of level?
Yeah, 3 of them are qualified careers advisors, and 1 of them is a support member staff. So, first of all, you come through to the AO, which is support staff. It's like a kind of triage system. He can do your query. If it's quite low level, he will. If not, he'll pass it on to the careers advisor, who'll provide the careers guidance.
Very good. Anna?
Thank you, Chair. You said the Dell Career Advice start or go into school at year 12. So that's, I suppose, advising them careers and what A-level subjects they should take. But I just wonder, should you not have it earlier? For example, I know for studying architecture, so universities won't require you to do an A-level art, but they would like to see an O-level, in my old days, O-level, and GCSE art. But if you don't have GCSE art, a lot of people would then go to do an A-level art, which really it's not what they require, but they would like to see a lower level of taking a subject in art, and just wonder, what would you say to that?
The program for careers guidance in schools starts actually at year 10, okay. And it's precisely to pick up the point that you make about subject choices. So we would have a class talk initially, and then we can have individual interviews and group sessions with any youngster who's a bit concerned about subject choices and what they should take. But you're absolutely right, some universities have a preference even at GCSE level, and in some cases if the young person doesn't make the right choice, they can actually cut off career routes as early as 14 if they don't make the right choices.
Okay, so it starts just at year 12?
It starts at 14. Sorry, it starts at year 10.
Year 10.
Third year.
That's fine.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Jared?
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the briefing, which is very interesting indeed. I think this career strategy is very, very important. I mean, speaking from some previous experience before coming here, it would seem to me that there was a plethora of different avenues for people to get careers advice, and at times it would seem that there was a real variance in quality. I have to be honest and say, anecdotally, I've been quite shocked by some of the things that I've heard in terms of particularly people in the schools realm, pressing people down particular career paths for certain professions that they consider to be the only ones worth pursuing. And I think that in itself is a very short-sighted strategy, because there are lots of things out there that young people could be guided towards or advised or informed of that could offer them much greater opportunities, maybe especially in our labour market. So I think it's a very important piece of work to bring all those strands of advice together and to have some sort of structure and quality assurance in terms of I suppose the quality of the advice that's being given. Just on the employer engagement piece specifically, very interested in that, particularly in relation to work placements and internships, and how you see that being standardised, because I think there's a real issue there around expectation, both on the part of the employer, what they're taking on, what they can expect from a young person that's going to be with them, and most importantly, from the young person that's going to be in there, that it's a worthwhile experience that I suppose shapes and informs and ignites their passion for that particular field of work. Because I have heard directly from people that have been in placements, and maybe Chair, it has fallen short of their expectations, that it could put them completely off that line of work entirely. So the pressure on that to get that right, how do you see employers being brought to the point where it's seriously on the level of the whole corporate social responsibility bit, that they're doing it for the right reasons and not just because they're getting another person in the workforce? So just wonder about that employer engagement bit. How do you see that shaping up?
I think that was one of the key reasons that both ministers wanted to establish the Careers Advisory Forum. They know that employers are willing to come forward and offer work placements, but are a bit frustrated as to how they should do it and how they should do it in a meaningful way. Schools too find it fairly difficult to get youngsters into placements and to manage that whole process. So that's one of the key outputs for the advisory forum, to oversee that process both at a strategic level and at local level. In terms of helping employers make sure that they can offer something meaningful, we want to draw up some kind of a general rules around what makes a good work experience placement, and we've already started work on that. And remember that when we did the work experience. And
does that include some sort of benchmarking around work-based learning in terms of what people could actually acquire by way of skills or in the workplace during a placement or internship?
The placement we're talking about is a very short placement for young people who are still in school, as opposed to a placement that you'd have, say, through a Sandwich University or a placement for training or whatever. But for a very short placement, which could be a week or even less than that, we have to make sure it is absolutely meaningful, and it usually doesn't unnecessarily turn people off a particular area. One of the things that we've found from elsewhere is that the work experience opportunities offered to young people, if you allow them to explore a website with lots of different areas on it, they could be encouraged to look at something completely different. So if you have a young person who's particularly focusing on teaching or medicine or something like that, then through the work experience website, you could get them to look at other things. And indeed, our advisors are encouraging people who are very focused on a particular career, and yes, they look as if they're headed that direction. They may well have family connections, or they may well have experience of what that job looks like. We're saying to them, actually, a week's work experience in that environment isn't really that useful for you. It might be useful to look at something else, like engineering or food manufacturing or marketing or whatever it is. Some of the other growth areas that we want people to at least look at and be aware of. And if that means discounting them at that stage, that's fine, but they're making an informed choice.
It's about considering those other options, I think, because that's part of the difficulty, is there is a pressure on people maybe to go down one particular avenue, and it might not necessarily be the right thing for them. And I think that's all the more pressurised, Chair, when it's a very limited period that they're doing this thing in.
That's right.
You know, because if you had something that was over a number of months or whatever, you would have more time to reflect on the experience and actually gain from it.
And it's about equality of access to those experiences as well, and we want to sort of standardise, streamline and increase access through the opportunities made available.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gerard. Phil?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. You might forgive me, but I can't really remember what's in the career strategy, because on this committee we're supposed to have an understanding of at least 15 strategies that they'll have, and I can't for the life of me remember what's in all of it. So if I ask an ignorant question, you'll forgive me. Has there been any work done with regards to providing all undergraduate students with access to a placement, a year's placement as part of the course, that an option that they can take up, but they don't necessarily have to, because it's not something that all courses offer, but it's something that I know the student movement want to see?
Yeah, it's a commitment in the Graduate into Success.
It's another strategy.
Yes, another strategy. But it is a commitment in that all undergraduate degrees will have an element of work placement, and I think so that's recognised that we shouldn't have graduates coming out after having done a 3-year or 4-year degree without any exposure to the world of work. Really, what we would want to see is much earlier engagement with the world of work, and that progressing right through. So and it's a balance when young people are in school or indeed at university, that you take time out to spend it with an employer. That has to be meaningful, because it's taking time away from their studies.
And when do you expect that commitment to be delivered?
I think the commitment in Graduate into Success is 2020. I think from memory it's 2020. That's the commitment in Graduate.
Okay, and turning back to just wider issues of work placement, does the department have any guidance that it can offer to employers or people taking on people for work experience or work placements as to what's expected of them in terms of nurturing young people and giving them a good insight into the world of work? Because I think we all probably take people on work experience here, and I think different young people have different expectations, and I think that there should be some guidance for employers. So what have you got for employers in that sense?
Well, I think that's absolutely right. That's what we want to do. We want to agree with employers through the Careers Advisory Forum a sort of standard protocol for what young people can expect when they go on a work experience placement, and also what young people should be delivering when they're there as well. So it's a two-way process. But we have people like the CBI and Business in the Community, etc., around the table at the Careers Advisory Forum, advising us on what that could look like. We also have parents' representatives and educationists around the Careers Advisory Forum as well.
And young people.
Sorry?
And young people.
And, well, the voice of young people, we want to take that separately on specific issues.
Okay.
It was discussed whether or not they should be at the table, but it's getting a representative of all the people that we're talking about, because the career service is not just for young people, it's for everyone. But what was agreed is when there's specific issues coming out of the Careers Advisory Forum, it will be tested with a group of key customers, and that's the process we use for the review as well.
And just to add to that, one of the commitments in the strategy is to produce information both for employers and parents and for young people. And there are web pages on NI Business for employers giving a sort of a broad outline of how to prepare for work experience placement, what insurance, etc., that they should have in place. And also on NI Direct for the citizen, for young people and for parents. How a young person should prepare for their work experience, how they should search for a work experience opportunity, how to select it and how to get the best out of it. So those are already available. They've been available since last July. And as well as that, Department of Education would have guidelines for careers teachers to use in organising work experience placements and liaising with employers.
Okay, but does the existing guidance for employers go beyond this is the level of insurance you need?
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. It's a broad range of guidance in terms of preparing for a young person coming on their work experience, what a young person should get out of their work experience, how to select somebody, etc. And that's already available on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Members, anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members are next.
Rob, before you move on there, can I suggest maybe that the committee writes to the Assembly Commission and proposes that the Commission develop some form of guidance for whatever new or existing members are lucky enough to be elected here after the 5th of May? Because members are frequently asked to take people on with work experience, and there might not be commonality amongst members as to what they provide for young people that come on work experience, and it might be something that, because an awful lot of members wouldn't be previous employers, and they might have experience, so it might be useful for the Commission to develop some form of guidance for MLAs in terms of how they handle people that come on work experience and what they should provide them with.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I know our party, we have some kind of a policy for us and a guidance format of what we should ask.
Actually, we probably do too. We probably do too.
Yes, you probably, yeah.
But who knows where it is?
That's not a strategy.
What?
It's not a strategy.
That's another one.
Members content with that?
Yeah, good idea, yeah.
Members, our next departmental witnesses aren't here yet. They're only leaving the city centre now, so I suggest we suspend for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so
I get the feeling they don't want to be here. Where's Tom? Have they got rid of him?
Are we just going too fast, too early?
Too fast for them.
We're about 3 weeks too early for them.
Suspend
What's the
to
next one?
10 past 9.
Steps.
Okay, members, we will
Line them up.
resume our
Microphones on, I'll not say that.
departmental officials are in attendance. Members, agenda item 10 is departmental briefing, steps to success. Table to page 20 is the briefing paper, steps to success. Table to page 39, statistical bulletin. Table to page 82 is the statistical tables. And table to page 109 is the withdrawal of steps to success subcontract. Okay, good morning, folks. Can I just welcome Mrs. Carol McKee, Acting Assistant Director for Strategy and Policy Division and Employment Services, Ms. Alison Larry, Head of Programme Management Development Branch, Mrs. Angela Whiteside, Quality Improvement Manager, Paul Moods, Head of Contract Management Branch. Good morning, folks. You're
Good
very
morning.
welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Carol, are you?
I'm leader, yes. Chair, apologies for the mix-up about the time.
Chair and Committee. Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to update you on Steps to Success. You know that the statistical bulletin was published last week, and that will actually form the basis of much of the discussion that we will have with you this morning. I am joined, as you have said, Chair, I'm joined by Alison Lowry, as actually the programme lead within the department, managing the programme Steps to Success. Angela Whiteside then has responsibility within the department for the quality of provision by the lead contractors, and Colin is actually responsible for contract management within the department and how the lead contractors are actually meeting the terms of the contracts through the programme's key performance indicators. We're going to do a bit of a presentation, Chair, if you're content. You have copies of the presentation rather than actually being up on the screen. If you're content, we would probably run through that presentation quickly enough to allow questions, time at the end for questions. So apologies if it appears as if we are running through it quickly, and stop us if it's too quick, but it's to allow time at the end if you're content. Alison will update you on the detail of the programme and the statistics, how that have been published recently, and also the statistics to do with the programme, and then we pass over to Angela and Colin, who will each look at quality and performance issues. In terms of background to Steps to Success, you're aware that the programme has replaced Steps to Work. It replaced it in 2014, and the programme was developed following a fairly extensive design process, and the committee has been updated on the programme, I think, at regular intervals. The overall aim of the programme, as it says there in your slides, is actually about helping eligible benefit recipients to find and sustain work, thereby supporting the needs of employers and the economy. And the design of the programme is a new approach to employment programmes in Northern Ireland, and it focuses very much on job outcomes, and contractors are then paid on the basis of results achieved. Contractors are also, and this is different in Steps to Success compared to Steps to Work, the contractors are given the freedom and flexibilities as part of the design of the programme to enable them to focus on an individual's needs and address the barriers that those individuals might have to getting into work. So the programme is much more about tailoring the interventions with the client to the client's needs, and less about providing a menu of provision which would have been done under the Steps to Work programme. The approach to Steps to Work is that the lead contractors and their supply chain determine the interventions, as I'm saying, and that they will very much focus on getting clients into work and sustained employment. And the programme's funding model is designed in a way to actually pay for job entries, but also focusing on sustaining long-term employment outcomes. There is also additional payments which are made to the lead contractors for any clients who work towards and achieve a qualification. And the work that the lead contractor will have done in helping the client achieve that accredited qualification. Just very briefly about implementation and go live then. The programme, the 3 lead contractors were appointed in July 2014. They are, as your slide tells you, Ingeus, which covers the Belfast region, People Plus Northern Ireland, formerly EOS Northern Ireland, covering the northern region, and Reed and Partnership, covering the southern region. And the programme went live across the 3 contract areas in October 2014. Clients were referred to lead contractors at the initial stage on a phased manner, reflecting a plan that we agreed with the lead contractors, because there were clients who were eligible for the programme in advance of the programme starting. So we worked with the lead contractors in terms of managing the numbers going on to the programme. And since then we have been working very closely and continue to work very closely with the lead contractors through both Alison's responsibility as the programme lead within the department and through the work that both Colin and Angela do in terms of monitoring quality and the contract performance. I'm going to now hand over to Alison, who will go through some of the data, the statistics that you have in front of you, and also some issues which have arisen. This is a new programme, and therefore we would have expected some issues to arise over the last year, so we'll talk those through with you. And then Alison will hand over to Angela about quality, and then Colin about contract management. Come back to me for pulling it all together in terms of where we're going after that, and then if you're happy enough, we would have some questions then after that. Chair, happy enough for take over with Alison then?
Yep. Thank you. The Department's been publishing the Steps to Success statistical fact sheets quarterly since last June 15. So our update to the committee has been timed to coincide with the latest bulletin, which was published just last week, because it's the first one that contains the job entry figures, and that's for the overall programme, but also for individual contract areas, and we know the committee has a particular interest in this. Whilst the bulletin details job entries up to December 15, the focus is primarily on those clients for the first 3 cohorts, and that's October 14 to December 14. And just as a reminder for the committee, a monthly cohort is made up of all clients starting Steps to Success within the same calendar month. So that means the majority of the October to December 14 participants have had up to 12 months on the programme. At this point, I thought it would also be useful to mention that the participants can find employment up to 13 weeks after completing the programme, and then the lead contractors have a further 13 weeks within which to actually claim for their output-related funding. So in reality, this means that the final job entry figures for these 3 monthly cohorts will not be available until April at the very earliest. So if you've had the opportunity to read the bulletin, you will notice the reference to this throughout. And so we have to recognise at the outset that these are interim figures. Moving on to programme performance then, focusing on those first 3 months cohorts, we can see that over 11,000 clients were referred to the programme, and nearly 7,000 of those were actually attached, and that means they started the programme. Of those who started during this period, nearly 1,600 have actually gone into validated employment, and that's where output-related funding has actually been paid. You'll notice the difference between the numbers referred to the programme during those first 3 months and the numbers who actually started, and there are a number of reasons why that figure differs. Clients have 15 days to start the programme after referral, and many of the December 14 cohort wouldn't actually have started until January 15. There were also a large number of clients referred at the start of the programme. Approximately 17,000 were actually referred at the outset, and many of those just couldn't be attached within 15 days, and so they started the programme in the subsequent months in 2015. Others have gone off benefit completely, and we have a significant number who've moved from Job Seekers Allowance to Employment Support Allowance, and so they are no longer mandated to go onto the programme. So at present, only 13% of the clients who were referred during those first 3 months have not yet started. The expected performance level set by the department in year 1 of the programme is 28% of participants would have moved into full-time employment, and the programme overall at this point is sitting at 23%. Moving on to the job entry statistics then by lead contractor, we can see what it looks like on an individual contract basis. Lot 1 in the Belfast region delivered by Ingeus has achieved 23%. Lot 2 in the Northern region delivered by People Plus has achieved 18%, and Lot 3 in the Southern region delivered by Reed has achieved 28%. There are other job entries, and I'm just going to go into those in a bit more detail now. IRSA, the Employment Related Services Association, is the industry body that represents all 3 of our lead contractors, and they've obtained information directly from them and have quoted a total of 6,933 job entries up to the end of January 16 in their recent press release that came out to coincide with our bulletin, whereas the department's validated statistics indicate 4,451 job entries to the end of December. The department's aware that lead contractors...
Sorry, Robin, can I just ask, have you got a copy of their press release that we can see it? No?
No.
We don't have it with us, sorry, but we can get you a copy
Is
of
it
that.
on the internet somewhere?
It may well be, but we can certainly get that through to you. Yeah.
Can certainly get that.
Sorry about that.
The department is aware that lead contractors have supported quite a number of participants to obtain part-time employment, and that's certainly a beneficial step for those individuals, but the job entry fee is only payable on full-time employment, which is defined as 16 hours per week, as over 16 hours per week. The lead contractors have submitted claims for job entries to the department, and there are claims that are still needing to be validated and paid by the department, and there are approximately 90 claims across all 3 contract areas that are sitting with the department to be validated at the moment. In addition, there are job entries for which the lead contractors have not yet obtained that employment verification, and the department has recognised that the current process of employment verification isn't providing us with the fullest possible picture of full-time job entries. So we're in the process of amending this. We've consulted with internal audit colleagues to ensure that the appropriate level of assurance is still going to be obtained, and we will soon accept an alternative verification method. So we anticipate that as a result, the number of job entries will be claimed retrospectively. I've mentioned that the department currently has that incomplete picture then due to the time allowed to enter employment and make a claim for output-related funding. And so, as you've seen, there are a variety of reasons then why there are other job entries not currently captured within the statistical bulletin that we have published. So you can see that there are these reasons why the department is confident that the published statistics in relation to job entry for the first 3 cohorts will definitely increase. Moving on to some of the challenges both the department and the lead contractors faced with this new programme. I mentioned that approximately 17,000 clients were immediately eligible for the programme at the outset, and this was due to the higher than anticipated number. This was a higher than anticipated number, and that was primarily due to the gap in the end of the Steps to Work programme in May 14 and the start of Steps to Success in October 14. We had originally envisaged that Steps to Success would begin earlier than October, and there was also a change in eligibility criteria. And as Carol has mentioned, the department had agreed a phased approach to this large number that were immediately eligible. Overall, the numbers actually referred to the programme are significantly lower than were originally forecast. The forecast for November 14 to November 15 was nearly 39,000, but in reality the actual numbers were around 30,000. And this is a result of the continuous drop in the JSA register, which was unforeseen not only by the departmental statisticians but also by independent economists. Since the start of the programme, the number of people in receipt of Job Seekers Allowance has actually fallen by almost 25%, which is certainly good news. Most of those who found work would have been those who had fewer barriers to employment and were more job ready. And so inevitably that means that of those entering Steps to Success, there have been more participants with substantial barriers to employment and more who are deemed to be long-term unemployed. Another factor impacting on the programme has been the level of disengagement of clients. For most clients, this is a mandatory programme, and it's been fully explained to them at the outset that they need to attend and they need to fully participate. But as a result of their repeated non-attendance, an unexpectedly large number of clients were referred for the consideration of a benefit sanction. There were issues for all stakeholders with that process and with the volume of clients involved, and the department has worked very proactively with all of those stakeholders to improve the process. And lastly, I have already mentioned that employment verification process. At this stage, I'm going to hand over to Angela, who's our Quality Improvement Advisor for the department.
Thank you, Alison. Good morning, everyone. As I know I have presented here to the committee before about our process, but just basically to remind you, we didn't commence quality evaluations until February this time last year, just over a year ago, because we wanted to allow the lead contractors and their supply chain to bed down in terms of their provision. In advance of commencing our quality evaluations, we met with all of the lead contractors, shared our quality indicators with them so as they were well aware of what we expected, and outlined our processes to them. They all had to submit a self-evaluation report, a very high-level self-evaluation report, before we commenced our work, so as we got them focused on the quality of their own provision. Our first evaluation activity was a baseline evaluation, which we commenced, as I say, just over a year ago, and that consisted of a 2-week visit by our team, focusing primarily on the lead contractor, but also dipping into the supply chain. And at that time, each lead contractor was dealing with a large number of referrals, so most of the interventions that we would have observed would have been initial engagement type interviews. That was the main focus, initial engagements and progress reviews at that stage, along with workshops. We found that at that time, our quality concerns, were mainly focused on the overly process-driven nature of the provision. Each lead contractor has very sophisticated management information systems, and we were finding that the advisors on the front line engaging with the clients were spending large periods of time inputting data to the detriment of the quality of the interaction with the client in front of them. We also found that they were focusing primarily on meeting the needs of the service guarantee in terms of attendance requirements for each client, rather than actually focusing on what's best for this client to help them to progress towards employment. Obviously, the service guarantee must be met, but they're not mutually exclusive. A focus on meeting the needs of the client must be done within the constraints of meeting the service guarantee. We had a particular concern in the northern region where we didn't find the uniform approach that we found in the other two. We found with Ingeus and with Reed in partnership that they had very quickly got off to a more uniform approach, a very unified lead contractor supply chain arrangement, but we didn't find that. We found differences in the northern region. And these primarily resulted in a lack of a standardised delivery model, differences in processes and delivery and in the skills and competences of staff across the lead contractor and the supply chain. And working relationships were not as good as we would have liked them to have been in that particular contract area at that time. Following that first round of visits, we asked all lead contractors to put in an improvement plan addressing the areas for improvement that we had left them with. We issued each one with a report detailing very clearly the strengths they had and the areas for improvement, and we asked them for an improvement plan. We then began the second round of visits with what we called Phase 1, which was a 3 to 4 week intensive activity by our team with each lead contractor and all across the supply chain. And we've built up since then a huge evidence base with approximately 1,134 interventions observed. When we use the term interventions, we mean initial interviews, progress reviews, workshops, one-to-one activities, job search activities, basically any of the interventions that the lead contractors or their supply chain present to help their clients into employment. So we commenced that Phase 1 in May 2015, and as I say, we spent 3 to 4 weeks covering the full range of interventions. We were very encouraged because we saw that 2 of the lead contractors, or 2 of the contract areas, had responded very positively to the initial feedback we had left them with following the baseline activities. We found in Reed, for example, that a new delivery model had been put in place following an in-depth analysis of the nature of the barriers that clients had. There was an extended range of workshops developed in response to this analysis of the most common type of barriers. They had implemented a new procedure to capture better individual client progress, because we felt it was very important that each client leave each intervention with a clear idea of the progress they made and the next steps. And they had developed a very robust essential skills policy to develop the literacy and numeracy needs of clients, which in some cases was a significant issue. In Ingeus, again, a wide range of workshops had been developed. Early on, we would have said, following the baseline, there would have been more of a one-size-fits-all approach, but we found that there was great differentiation now in the workshops, digging down, drilling down to actually provide workshops that addressed these barriers on a much more individual level. We found a very good use and appropriate use of specialist support, including the services of a very well-developed and Ingeus health and wellbeing team. And again, this was being used across the contract area, addressing a number of issues, obviously, physical health issues, mental health issues, anxiety, etc. And we found in Ingeus piloting of new and innovative initiatives to meet clients' needs. Alison has referred to non-engagement. They were very quick to develop social inclusion activities, which were already showing early signs of being very effective in bringing in clients who were reluctant to engage and actually progressing them through the programme and into employment. One of the first ones was a football activity. They've since moved on to develop this into other areas, equestrian, boxing, boxing or whatever, but these are really very innovative and very successful in engaging and enhancing the motivation of clients. And also at that phase 1, we found an academy model being developed in Indias where they were engaging with employers in particular sectors. The first one was in hospitality, and again it was addressed at individuals who had significant barriers and were far from the workplace. In the northern region, we did find improvement. They too had very strong catering provision in one of their training centres, where it was delivering very strong results in engaging clients and developing their employability skills. So we found that the working relations had improved and some good training, as I say, was observed in catering. In Mollusk, there was a very well-developed forklift training facility developed with a trainer in there, and again, good results coming through from that. However, there were still quality issues which were a concern to us, and these centred on poor quality interventions across the contract area, particularly workshops that weren't very good quality or weren't relevant or meeting client needs. They lacked focus and on occasion were poorly delivered, and as a result not enough was being done to help people into employment. And again, we made the lead contractor very, very clear about our concerns and our expectations, that their own quality assurance activities should be picking this up and addressing it. We, after each round of visits, we share good practice and we identify the main concerns. So we had all 3 lead contractors in for 2 such events by this stage. Again, we asked for improvement plans and made very clear that phase 2 would result in a grade being awarded. We've just completed phase 2. And again, we see with Indias and Reed in partnership that the quality of provision is continuing to develop. Reed have developed, I mentioned the MIS at the start, which was a bit of an issue in terms of so much data was being put in, but we actually can see now the outworkings of these sophisticated systems, in that the lead contractors are very able to drill down and come up with trends and analysis and detail that we maybe haven't seen before. So Reed in partnership had used this very, very well to do an analysis of the 10 most common barriers on an office-by-office basis, and then to adapt their provision to meet that. They have very, very clear vision of where they want to take the provision, and they're continuing to develop that. India's continued to develop their initiatives that were proving successful, their social inclusion activities covering a huge range now, and again throughout the contract area, a wide range of the academy models, financial services, contact centre, etc. Again, throughout the contract area, very strong in identifying good practice and sharing good practice and making sure that the supply chain are working very positively with them. And we also find that People Plus had made improvement. They did, our phase 2 work did confirm that People Plus had put a huge effort in between our last visit and the one we've just finished into training advisors to make sure that the quality of interventions were better. So we were pleased to report that the overall quality had now arrived at good in terms of People Plus. A greater focus had been placed on employer engagement. Still a lot of work to be done to consolidate the good grade and to make sure that they move forward. But as a result of an intensive training programme, considerable progress has been made over the last few months. I have included slides there where you see characteristics of good and where the most common issues that have been identified and addressed. In terms of our next steps, we will review our model. And we have identified through the course of work that there are certain themes that we would maybe like to do shorter, sharper, focused work with. So we will adopt a more thematic approach in the short term to future evaluations. We will continue to share good practice across all 3 lead contractors, and we'll continue to follow up on identified areas of weakness at individual lead contractor level and concentrate our activities more on a proportionate to risk, because we have data now to inform our future activities. Colin, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. So the committee will be aware from previous briefings of the structure that we have in the department to manage performance and compliance within the contract, so I'll not go over that again. Turning to the key performance indicators, which I have a slide included in the presentation on. As you know, the Department has set a range of high-level and more detailed targets to be used when assessing performance in this programme. Each of these is measured on a 4-point scale, and lead contractors have to get a score of 3 or better in each in order to be deemed to be performing satisfactorily as far as the contract is concerned. You'll see from the list of 5 indicators on the slide that 2 of them are concerned with clients sustaining employment for 6 and 12 months after they've entered a job. So although we do have some data on that, it really is so provisional that we're going to focus today on the remaining indicators. Angela has already talked about service quality, so I'm going to talk about KPI 1, which is job entries, job outcomes, and KPI 4 on compliance. With the publication of the first set of validated statistics, we're now in a position to start to make use of that data when assessing performance. As you've already heard, one of the lead contractors is on track to achieve the target, and the other 2 are not, albeit to varying degrees. As Alison has said, it is important to note that we're not yet in possession of the final numbers. So these ratings are indicative and represent the rating that the current performance levels would attract if they were to stay the same. It's equally important to note that we don't expect that will be the case. We do expect the figures to rise over the next number of months. The figures in the bulletin itself show that when you isolate the 3 monthly cohorts between October, November and December 2014, the October cohort has a job entry rate of 38%, the November 26% and the December 21%. Which is illustrative that as the cohorts move through their time and programme and the remaining time that contractors have to claim valid jobs and for us to then pay them, that the numbers do rise month on month. As Alison has said, there are some other factors that we've identified during the period of operations that have impacted the ability of the lead contractors to perform in this area, namely the additional jobs being obtained that don't meet our criteria for payment and so don't make it into the statistics, and the knock-on effect of the level of client disengagement in the early months of the programme. I'll talk more about what the Department is doing about that in a second, but I want to quickly mention the KPI on compliance, which is KPI 4. As you can see from the slide, all 3 of the contractors have been rated as satisfactory against this target. And while this isn't such a high-profile issue as job outcomes, compliance with the terms of contract is one of the key pillars of how the Department ensures that it's protecting the public purse and getting value for money, and holding contractors to account for their actions on a day-to-day basis in a way that quarterly statistical bulletins don't always facilitate. So in summary, I'm content that all 3 lead contractors have appropriate systems and controls in place to deliver adherence in full to the terms of contract. So given the figures that we have, what has the Department been doing about them and what will we be doing now? The first point I want to make is to reassure the Committee of the degree of seriousness with which the Department takes these figures and affords this issue. Contractors not delivering on contractor requirements is a very serious matter, which means the public purse is not getting what it's paying for. When we designed this contract, we were very careful to include specific and explicit powers to require and receive improvements to underperformance. And we've made use of these powers to date in other areas, which are less significant in the bulletin, but we're confident that we have the tools we would need to work with contractors to improve. In the present case, on receipt of the statistical bulletin, we wrote to the 2 lead contractors who are not on course to meet the target. The letters have expressed the Department's disappointment in no uncertain terms and initiated a formal process of producing improvement plans to address shortcomings in delivery. Should it be needed, the contract does contain the power to escalate this further both within the Department and within the lead contract organisations. And if this occurs and performance still does not improve to a satisfactory level within the set period that the Department will give, it may be regarded as an act of grave professional misconduct, and contractors may be issued with a certificate of unsatisfactory performance and ultimately their contract may be terminated.
Chair, that's where we are. Just the final slide that you have is largely about the where we're going beyond this, where we're going for the rest of the year. We have quite a few reviews going on. We have our internal audit colleagues within the department who are currently conducting a review. We will also be having the Northern Ireland Audit Office will be coming into us, and sorry, I haven't that slide in front of me, I've just missed that, but it's May, I think, is the timescale we have for it. And then we will also be conducting an external evaluation later on in the year. So there's quite a few occasions during the year where we will continue to build on the information we have and review. We will also continue to work with the lead contractors in terms of many of the issues that Alison has raised. So all in all, there's quite a lot going on with the programme, and much work over the next year will continue to kind of build on that in terms of information which is provided to us in the department about how it's progressing. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. One of the concerns that's been continually raised by the committee during the steps to success was what we did with an unsatisfactory provider. And I suppose, Angela, I'm picking up on your comments as well in regard to two of the providers who were good and improved, and then it seemed to be there was a third one that was taking a little bit more work to get them up to a standard. And I'm specifically referring to People Plus, because I think even from your slide, KPI 1, early indications of job, they're sitting at 18%, which is 5% their closest neighbour, and they're still unsatisfactory. Declare, I suppose, People Plus cover my own constituency in my own area. I suppose that's why I'm so concerned. What are the further steps? Because I'm listening to you, I'm looking at the statistics, and I'm beginning to get a feeling that People Plus maybe have further to go, and it's the users that are actually suffering. I know you were saying, Colin, the KPI 4, they've all scored satisfactory, but you can have the greatest range of manuals sitting on a shelf in your office, and everybody can get a grade 3 for that. What's been done with People Plus, especially in that northern region area, to get them up to the standard?
Yeah, well, as we know, contractors would certainly point out that there is time yet for these figures to increase, and so that any degree of underperformance wouldn't be as stark as it appears from the first set of figures. So I accept that to a point, but I'm not convinced that it's the full story, given that other contractors are performing significantly better. There are some common issues between both lots 1 and 2. When we look at our analysis of comparing them with lot 3, which is Reed, what might be different and what might help explain this. There are two things that I would really say at the moment. One is that lead contractors in the supply chain didn't initially invest the same level of resources in their employer contact in terms of actually getting the employer to sign the form needed to pay. And so there are jobs sitting out there where they have not been able to get an employer to sign the bit of paper, so they can't claim it and it doesn't appear. Whereas Reed put additional staff specifically on that issue from an early point within the contract. And the second thing is that the initial focus of Ingeus and People Plus in the first 3 months, when the numbers were quite a lot higher in terms of the flow onto the programme, was on attaching clients, and perhaps they took their eye off the ball a little bit in terms of the job outcome activity, that they were focused on trying to meet the interim targets on how quickly they were attaching clients, and that had then some impact. What I would say is that we talk about these issues every month with them in a formal setting, and so there have been discussions about these things, and we know that they have been working on different techniques, and as Angela has said, they have addressed some of the quality issues. These are the first 3 months on the programme. There is a fair body of work being done that isn't reflected in those 3 cohorts, and certainly with the improvement plan that we're going to look for now, that gives us the opportunity to go into a lot of detail with them about why they feel the performance is what it is and what could be done about it.
How long do we give them to turn that round? Because, Angela, I noted your comments in regard to provision and workshops, poor quality, poor quality interference, lack in focus and poorly delivered. That disengages the key clients as well, if they're not getting the delivery they deserve from those people. So,
absolutely.
How quickly are they turning that around?
Well, that is the position that we would have seen during our first extended evaluation towards the end of the summer, early autumn. We left them in no doubt, those words were used with them. I think that one of their issues was their quality assurance processes. They were relying on us to identify this and to tell them, whereas the other 2 lead contractors were much more on top of the range of quality or variations in quality throughout the contract area themselves. But they did take our feedback on board at that point and did invest significantly in a large training programme. And we're not finding that degree of issue anymore with People Plus. They still have a lot to do, but there has been considerable progress.
Right. So, your comment there, they were relying on what you were saying. Is that their level of achievement? Is it doing exactly what you asked them and no more? Is that what we're still at?
No, because that would just be a quick fix approach. At our last visit, we had more confidence that they are out more effectively observing everything throughout the contract area. and that they have put in extensive training. If we go back away to the early criticisms from our first visit, there was no uniformity at all. There was no sharing of good practice, no identification of good practice. It was quite different from office to office. We're not finding that anymore. We're finding the supply chain and the lead contractor working much better, and that there have been joint training initiatives going on and observations carried out throughout the contract area. So this has been quite new, but at our last visit just completed, it has given us confidence that they have made considerable progress. The task for them, as we've told them, is to sustain that.
I think so, Chair. In addition to that, I think the work that the team does within the department as well about day-to-day contact with the contractors and reporting through the improvement plans and the progress on the improvement plans through to our performance review board within the department means that we're maintaining that focus on ensuring the client, at the end of the day, the client is actually seeing an improvement in the service. So we're trying to kind of manage that in addition to the improvement plans and the regular engagement that both Colin and Angela would have with the contractor. We're doing that on a day-to-day basis, working with the contractors as well.
I suppose I'm just concerned about how hands-on the department has had to be. And there's one of the subcontractors has pulled out in Northern Zone as well. How did that affect their delivery?
Yes, so obviously relationship with the subcontractors are a commercial matter for the lead contractor, but equally obviously we have a very strong interest in making sure that the quality of our service is maintained throughout any given geographical area. So we have a change control process in place that when a lead contractor wants to make a change, that they need to get our approval and they need to involve us, because ultimately it's our risk that they're carrying. And what we're able to do then is assess any proposals for change in light of both our clients, the contractor requirements, the quality requirements and the other aspects of the programme. So in the one instance where a subcontractor is withdrawn, thankfully the working relationships we have with People Plus NI meant that we were cited on that very early. And we were able to get them to draw up quite a detailed plan showing us how the service, both to the department and to our clients, would not be disrupted by this. We feel that we were able to manage that quite smoothly and in good time, and that really there should be very little change visible to clients, the main change being signage and different logos on various signs and documents, but that the service experienced by the clients, given that the previous subcontractor was operating People Plus's own delivery model, should be very similar and shouldn't suffer. We're quite confident that that would be the case.
Okay. Last point then, just before I'm out. URSA's press release then, 7,000 job seekers into work. You verified 4,451. An over-declaration of 56% or 2,240 odd people. Where does the truth come into this, or is it something the department's worried about?
We're not concerned about it, because as I mentioned at the outset, that we have explanations for those differences. I think it would be unfair to say it's an over-declaration. What the lead contractors are keen to do is to actually provide information that is the full picture of employment outcomes that they have achieved. But from a departmental perspective, not all of those outcomes have actually translated into us paying output-related funding, and that is the basis upon which the validated statistics are made in our bulletin. So we're certainly well aware that there is some room for manoeuvre there in the next few months, and that we are expecting those figures that we have published to increase, but they may not increase to the level that has been reported by URSA.
I suppose, Alison, that's the nub of it, the information that's out there and how successful steps to success are. People will read the press release when it goes into the press rather than having to look for a departmental statistical bulletin, something that we actually had to ask for because it wasn't being supplied to the committee up until 2 months ago. So it's where the truth lies and how we get out the message of what these contractors are actually delivering.
I think, as Alison said, the issue isn't that the information that URSA provides is one set of information. What we are publishing is the information which we can validate. It has been validated in terms of the process which the lead contractors are very aware of and what we need to do to validate that information. There is going to be a difference because there will be different job entries and jobs in the pipeline which wouldn't as yet be validated. But it doesn't mean the two numbers, there's a conflict between the two. It just means they're kind of taking account of different things.
I do notice, the URSA, or whatever you call them, published put out their figures to coincide with the first release of official
Yes.
performance data, so there was two sets of figures out there at the same time.
Yes, and we would have been aware, Chair, at the time, that certainly working with IRSA, and we would have known that IRSA was doing a press release. It's they're publishing, it is two different sets of information, but ours is the information which is in the bulletin, which is validated and based on actual payments and funding based on those the validated numbers. So it's, as Alison had said in her slide, there are other things which are taken into account in the IRSA data, but we haven't yet validated those.
Okay, Bronwyn.
That's okay, Chair.
Okay, Phil.
Aye. Thanks for the update. It's long overdue. We've been waiting for it for a long time. I suppose first in terms of Robin's last question, in terms of the differential in figures, you're saying that this isn't an over-declaration, so is the department's figure an under-declaration?
No, I'm not saying it's an over-declaration in that what they are saying has not actually happened on the ground, but it's back to Carol's point of our information, and the information we are standing over as a department is what has been validated.
Well, the problem I have is that this is released in a press release that's went out to the world. I don't know who it was sent to, but the department never put out a press release with the actual figures in it. Now, the Minister thought it was appropriate to highlight that there's a Northdown jobs fair that 40 employers are going to, but hasn't saw fit to highlight the success or otherwise of the Steps to Success programme. Why did the department not put out a press release?
And I understand that that is the normal process with statistical bulletins that NISRA issues. But we can certainly come back to you on that
right.
with a firmer line on it.
Can you outline how much has been spent on Steps to Success to date?
The overall amount that we have spent on the programme since it started in 2014 is 17 million. It's for 16.986 million.
So you'd spent 14 million by the end of June?
And we... Sorry, say that again?
So you'd spent over 14 million by the end of June? So now you've spent 16.9?
16.9 to date.
Right.
So by the end of June. Now, most of that, the majority of that money relates to payments which would have been made to the lead contractors for clients attaching to the programme. Over 90% of that is related to clients attaching to the programme.
And how much does that break down to participant that got a job through the scheme?
We haven't got a figure for you on the kind of cost per job.
Well, there's 17 million has been spent. How many?
17 million has been spent, but because of where we are in terms of the number of what we're counting at the minute on validated or job entries, we also have to gather information in terms of how many of those jobs are sustained and the fees that would be paid to lead contractors.
So no, the point I'm trying to establish is there have been 17 million paid out.
Yes.
How many job entries have there been?
Well, the job entries as well.
4,500?
The 4.5, yes.
So how much is that per job entry?
Well, we can't calculate. We can't. It isn't.
Well, it's a matter of dividing 17 million by
3,796.
Is you a calculator there, or are you the rain man?
I'm ahead.
It's not. Can I say, Chair, that it's not?
How much is that again?
3,796.
Which will not be the case, because if you think that those 4,500 are the job entries to date, well, to the end of December, and there are a significant number of participants on the programme who still have a significant number of months still remaining on the programme. So that's not giving the full picture of the programme itself. That's why our focus is on the first 3 months cohorts, because the majority of those participants have completed 12 months.
Well, then how much was spent in the first 3 months cohorts?
Over to Carol again.
And the amount I think we spent on the first, and forgive me, Mr Flanagan, if I need to kind of come back to you specifically on that, because the amount that I have is actually the overall spent to date, which is the 17 million. I would need to go back and see, particularly for that cohort, how many do we have? I'm not sure whether the figure that I have actually relates to the first 3 months.
Okay.
Although we're still not going to be able to give job entry, job costs. Cost per job.
No, but if you can give me the total cost of running the programme from October to December 2014 and the total cost of running the programme between October and December 2014, you can then give me the total figure per job entry in relation to the total cost of the scheme.
We won't, because we have the calculation has to take account of job sustainments,
yes.
And we're not in a position to provide information on job sustainment yet because it's
from
too
October
early.
2014?
Because it's too early.
We can certainly give you the overall amount that has been spent on the programme. We can certainly give you how much of that would have related to attachments, people who have attached to the programme and therefore are still continuing on the programme.
I think there's some misunderstanding here. I want to establish how much was spent in total between October and December 2014?
Yes, that's right.
And how many people actually got a job entry out of that?
Yes.
And then I want to be able to divide the number of people that got a job into the total spend to see how much it cost per person that got a job. It's quite simple.
And you could divide the two together, but what you're not taking account of, if we do that, is not taking account of the money that would be paid to lead contractors and others for sustained employment. So that's only money which is to do with job entry. But we also need to factor in, and it's certainly in terms of cost per job is something which we would do for the programme, but we would do it using the total spend of the programme and taking account of jobs, clients who have gone into work and clients who have been able to sustain the payments that have gone towards sustaining that employment.
But surely you can calculate how much has been paid out for jobs sustained for people that got a job or that went through the programme in the first 3 months?
We haven't yet, because the data that we have is only for those who have gone into work, and the job entry payments which are made to lead contractors for that. There are then payments for periods of, and remind me, the periods is 12, 3, 6, 9 months after the person has gone into work, and so we would continue to pay the lead contractor for as long as the client remains in employment. So we're not at the stage with those people who went into work, we're not at the stage with fully making the payments to cover the sustained employment, and that's what we would want to factor into any cost per job calculation.
So the audit office is going in 2 months and you still don't have the information as to how much it's actually cost?
We have the information in terms of how much we have paid. We would have information in terms of attachment. We will have, and I will come back to you in terms of cost to do with the job entry numbers, but what we won't have is a bit missing from it, which is actually related to sustained employment, and we would be looking for that over the 3, 6, 9 month, 12-month period.
We mightn't be here to get it. Can you tell me what percentage of participants voluntarily took part? Or how many did it so after being unemployed for 9 or 12 months?
We would need to come back to you with that information. There's information contained within the bulletin and tables in the bulletin.
Can I ask you, sorry, Mr. Phillip, what do you exactly mean about voluntary plans in terms of entry, early entry plans?
Job seekers allowance, early entry, I think it's called, and then there's the ESA voluntary category.
Yes, that's right. And are you talking about those numbers, the numbers that have gone into work from those?
No, participants. People that have opted to participate voluntarily in Steps to Success as opposed to having to do so under the mandatory scheme.
Yes. We have, if you look at your page 14 of the statistical bulletin, which it actually publishes the number of referrals and starts by the early entry category, the JSA early entry and the ESA clients.
I don't have page numbers.
Sorry, beg your pardon, 14.
I know, I don't have it.
Page
What,
14, number?
Table number 1.1. Page 14, referrals and starts, and you'll have the list of the number of clients from October 2014, JSA early entry clients.
Yeah. Okay, so 2,224 out of 31,000?
Yes.
And what was the
Overall, the total number of referrals was the 30,000 over that period, and out of that, the 2,000 were related to JSA early entry.
Right, and what was the department's projected figure for early entry participants?
I'm not sure that we had a projection for early entry, did we? Sorry.
Aye. I'm not trying to trip you up here, but I remember asking questions in September, October time, and the only figures I could get was October to June. And at that stage, the number of voluntary participants was about 8%, which was less than half of what the department had projected. So, are we still in a situation where the department's projected figure for voluntary entry into the STEP Success scheme is much lower than anticipated?
We have small numbers of clients going in on voluntary early entry, JSA early entry clients, but I would need to come back to you on the specifics of those numbers.
And have you tried to figure out why that's the case?
We're looking into that actually. What is it that actually is causing? I mean, early entry would be clients that we as an employment service would work with who, for whatever barriers the client might have, we would encourage them or talk to them about going on to Steps to Success. It is, as I understand it, is voluntary for the client at that stage to decide whether they go on to Steps to Success, and we would look at why the numbers are so small, but it is trying to work with the client at that stage. It's a voluntary, it's a decision for the client to make it themselves, but it's certainly our frontline advisors, employment and service advisors, would be working with the client to try to see whether Steps to Success at that stage would be the best programme for them.
How many people have received benefit sanctions through the Steps Success programme?
And we would not be in a position to give you that information because it's held by the Social Security Agency, but we can certainly ask our colleagues to obtain that.
It was 1,470 between the 1st of October and the 30th of June. You don't have an update on that?
We don't hold that information within our department.
Can you get it for us?
Yes.
But we can certainly obtain it.
How far away are we from the removal of this contract from any of the providers?
I think, as Colin talked about, and I think there are steps which we are taking at the minute and to actually work with the providers, with the contractors on. This is early days. The bulletin that was published last week is very early on, and it is the only information that we provided at this stage which is validated. So I think it's an early indication of how things are going, and we have put in place improvement plans, as Colin and Angela had talked about. And we need to keep a very close eye on that. We don't want that to get worse. And as for all of the reasons which Alison had said, there are things which would make us optimistic in terms of issues which we can address to improve the numbers. But we certainly would, as it is early days, and we're trying to make sure that the improvement plans and the steps we're taking are actually trying to improve the situation.
But have you done any assessment of the number of people that have actually got jobs? Have you tried to assess whether those are the people within Step Success that were actually furthest from the labour market, or whether they would have been people that would have got employment anyway if there was an employment opportunity for them?
I think the people who are actually on Steps to Success are further from the labour market now anyway, because...
No, the people that are in Steps to Success are people that are unemployed for more than 9 or 12 months.
Yes, that's right.
It doesn't mean that they're more difficult to employ. And so few of the people that have participated in Step Success have actually got employment, that what I would like to know is whether an analysis has been done of whether they were actually further from being employable, or whether they were the easiest of the people that were forced to participate in the Step Success scheme, to see whether this is a useful spend of money at all.
I would comment that, whenever we have talked about the 17,000 that were immediately eligible for Steps to Success.
Now, when you say eligible,
yeah, immediately eligible.
Forced onto the scheme?
That they were mandated to go on to the programme.
It's not eligibility. Everybody's eligible for the Step to Success scheme if they're not employed. But after 9 months, if you're under 25 or over 12 months, you have to go and do it.
But bearing in mind then, because of the gap in programmes, that we had quite a number, and the change in eligibility, we had a significant number of people who'd been unemployed for a lot longer than 1 year. And so in saying were they the easier to help individuals have gone on to Step Success, I think that's far from the case.
No, I don't mean that has gone on to Step Success, that they're the ones out of Step Success that have got employment.
Yes, and we have no analysis of that.
Is there any way that it can be done?
That would be through.
It can be done by looking very broadly at the category of participant. So depending on what benefit they were on and what age they were, whether they were an early entrant or a volunteer, that gives you some indication at a very broad level.
Or what skills or qualifications or previous experience they had?
That could be done. I mean, that's one of the things that lead contractors would look at as part of an induction process would be...
But it's something I would like the department to do to justify this spend of £17 million. If you're telling me that this is a worthwhile intervention, I want to see that it's actually being used to help people that couldn't otherwise get a job, instead of just facilitating recruitment companies to have an easy pool of available labour.
And we would certainly have the same interest in terms of actually, part of my opening comments when I was talking about making sure that the lead contractors work with clients and tailor the service to their particular needs. We would be trying to make sure that the lead contractors are doing that, so that they're actually trying to get as many clients obviously into work, but in a way that actually suits and addresses the individual barriers of the client. Can I also pick up on another point that you mentioned there, Mr Flanagan, about the mandation point? I think we need to remember as well that we have the period of time before the client goes on to Step Success. There's a significant amount of opportunity there to work with our frontline employment service advisors in terms of trying to move the client on and get those clients into work. So the kind of Steps to Success, moving them into Steps to Success, kind of complements that. If they haven't moved into work at that stage, the Steps to Success is another option for those clients. But there is a significant opportunity as well for trying to work with the client before they are mandated onto Steps to Success.
Well, my understanding through previous briefings we had on Step to Success was that there was going to be no mandatory process for people. I've been opposed to Step Success from the start. If I'd known that there was a mandatory element of this for people, I certainly would have opposed it even harder. I thought we were led to believe that the people were being offered the choice to go on it. I didn't think that there was any conditionality or mandatory requirement for people to go onto this, and I think that's a huge retrograde step. And the fact that so many people are receiving sanctions for missing an interview, for a whole range of problems that are losing their benefits for weeks on end is completely unacceptable, and that's the primary reason why people won't do this voluntarily. And until you remove this fact of giving people sanctions because they miss a Step Success interview with somebody that they've met every week for the last 12 weeks, that's a complete waste of their time. You're never going to get people to voluntarily participate in this scheme. And if you want people to participate in this scheme, you need to remove the heinous sanctions that are applied to people that miss a straightforward interview because they can't get childcare or they haven't access to reliable public transport.
Well, can we take your comments and note those comments?
Yeah.
You'll know the design of the programme and the length that the department has gone to in designing the programme and the opportunities that there are to work with clients before the mandated point. But can we kind of take your comments and note those?
Can I just come in there, Phil?
Yeah.
It actually comes back to my concerns in regards to People Plus, and the comments were made about the poor quality interface, the lack of focus on party delivered, because if you have somebody who feels mandated to go to a number of those interviews that they feel there's no point of being there, that's why they start skipping them.
Okay.
And if it's the lack of People Plus's dedication to what they're meant to be delivering is disenfranchised the people to go and then they end up being sanctioned, there's a problem there with People Plus's delivery that needs to be, and I know there are steps being put in there, but maybe we need to look at how many people have been sanctioned because they were actually disengaged from a process that wasn't actually doing anything for them.
And I suppose the final comment, or the final area I wanted to explore, was KPI 5, which we haven't been given any information on, and for me is the fundamental assessment that we should be given information on, which is the quality of service provided by contractors in terms of participant assessment. You know, you've given us information on job outcomes and compliance, but I would really like to know what participants in this scheme are actually saying about it, because the feedback I'm getting and other members of this committee are getting is that this is a disgraceful scheme, that people are being treated like dirt. The requirements that they have to comply with just to get their benefits is completely unacceptable, and I would like to see a full report on how each of the 3 contractors are complying with KPI 5, and I can't understand why we haven't given that today. I think we've had a serious battle to try and get this presentation, to get the statistical bulletin, which was supposed to be published on the 25th of February. It was published, hidden on the website, but not given to anybody. And I want to know why KPI 5, we haven't got information on what people that are participating in the scheme have said and how we can get access to that. Because that's the fundamental area where we should be looking.
Okay. Ashton, do you want to comment on
Yeah, we
that?
have, as part of our phase 2, we did carry out, we issued confidential questionnaires to all the participants across all of the office, and we had a very high, now we can't provide you with details of that, but we had a very high level of satisfaction, and actually People Plus probably the highest, across all of the returns.
But they were being sent to People Plus and to the other 2 contractors?
Yes, yes, across all the offices.
So that's
Issued in
partial.
person by our staff and returned in a confidential envelope.
But they were given to the 3 lead contractors?
No, they were given to the participants themselves,
By whom?
by my team.
So they were in each of the offices?
Yes.
Giving out these forms and getting
Yes.
them back directly?
Yeah.
And how many forms did you give out roughly? Tens or hundreds or
I
thousands?
can come back to you on that, but we had quite a high return and very, very positive responses.
Well, that's not the feedback I'm getting, but I would like to see whatever statistical analysis you have behind KPI 5.
I think, and all of that information, I imagine, will form part of the evaluation that we will do later on in the year. We are looking at data which is very early on in the programme. We are taking steps in terms of the improvement plans, but we also will formally evaluate where the programme is later on this year, which I think will take up a lot of the issues that you have raised.
And when's the earliest this scheme can be scrapped?
Well,
When is the first gap in the contract where this scheme can be scrapped, where you can hold your hands up and go, this is a waste of money, we should stop doing it, and bring all of this back inside the Jobs and Benefits Office?
Well, what we would actually do is look at what the evaluation tells us at the end of this year. The contract, as I understand it, is 4 years, and we are very early on in that contract. But we would certainly have plans this year to look, as I said to you, to do an external evaluation. What that external evaluation tells us will be very important in terms of the future of the programme.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't want to preempt that. We would
But
want to
is-
kind of
is
make
there-
use of all of the review stages that we have this year to both improve performance and find out what the evaluations are telling us.
The contract can be terminated at any point if we feel that performance isn't at the level.
Just performance?
Well, the KPIs are a good indicator of performance, but the department has the right to terminate the contract immediately if there's a serious default, or if there's a default that we don't feel is capable of being fixed.
And the same right, I presume, exists for contractors who invariably at some stage are going to decide we're not getting a return on this because we're not hitting the numbers we thought we were going to do. We're actually losing money and we're pulling out.
Actually, no, the contractors don't have the legal right to end the contract. Only the department does.
Aye, but I'm sure that they have some mechanism of getting out of the contract.
Practically, if they were to cease engaging with us and pack up their offices and go home, then in some ways,
They'll
yes.
stop delivering for them people.
But it's the department that holds the control over when this contract would end.
And is that something that the department's keeping an option open, is scrapping the scheme at some stage in the near future? If it's what the data and the information points to?
Well, the department would only, the department at this stage will only say it will take account of whatever the evaluation tells us this year, and not just the external evaluation. As we progress, it's not that we're going to wait until November an evaluation. We're monitoring it on a regular basis. We'll make use of whatever information that monitoring tells us, but we do have more formal occasions during the year to monitor through our audit colleagues and through the external evaluation. And at this stage, I think all we can say is that we would actually use that information to decide on the future of the programme, rather than making any decision or comment now about, I can't remember, sorry, Mr Flanagan, the phrase you used, but I think that's what we would use to inform where we go beyond this year.
And what mechanism has the department got if any of these contractors decide to up and leave? Well, have you some sort of clawback mechanism?
There are provisions in the contract to safeguard the financial position of the department and the public purse. Obviously, we would hope never to get to that point, and I would be very surprised. I've never heard of a contract getting to that point of this scale. One of the things you had asked was, how long would you give them? Well, it all very much depends on what we felt was needed to be done in order to fix the problems that we've seen. So, a very simple example: if we felt that the problem was that their IT system wasn't working, they should be able to fix that within a couple of weeks. If we feel that it's a problem that maybe needs staff to be retrained, or new staff, or a slightly different business model, then that might take.
What if the problem wasn't actually with the contract providers, but was with the scheme itself?
Well, problem, what if it was? Do you mean what would we do about that?
Yeah.
I mean, we still have. We would the same. I kind of feel as if I'm repeating myself. The same way. The same way of managing. We would still have the same way of managing. Don't lose sight of the fact that we also still have our offices, our employment service advisors across across Northern Ireland, and that they would still be offering the same service to all clients who need to avail of it. But for now, our programme does that. We will monitor progress. We will take steps if something needs to be done, and we will use whatever information we get through an evaluation to decide on how we go. But if something we have to step in quickly, the department can do that through the contract arrangements and also through our network of offices that we have in place.
I'll leave you alone now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Angela, can I just one very quick one? You said the direct engagement with the clients was your staff gave them a questionnaire.
Yes.
Is that actually given to them in the office of the lead provider?
All of the offices. All of the offices.
So the lead provider would be aware of who of their clients were actually being given the surveys to complete?
No, we didn't go through. The lead contractor was aware that we were issuing confidential questionnaires, but they wouldn't have, unless they'd been, noting who was in that day particularly.
But they should have a record of who was in that day.
Well, yes.
So is there any? I'm just concerned. if you're saying you're getting good responses, my feedback would be similar to Phil, that it's not a good. Is there? I'm not saying undue pressure, but maybe your system needs looked at. But if you're handing out confidential questionnaires to service providers, just how confidential that system is?
We certainly review that as part of the model, but for us it was an initial attempt to get confidential feedback from,
the physical handover of the...
and the lead contractor wasn't involved in terms of...
But you done it on their premises?
Yes. I mean, obviously an online one may yield better, more secure responses. The difficulty with the online one is very often you have a low return. We were advised by our colleagues in analytical services that very often you have a low return from online questionnaires, and on occasion literacy and numeracy, or literacy barriers in particular, can sort of deflect meaning.
There'll be nothing stopping one of the key providers bringing everybody in that was in on a certain day and having a wee workshop how we fill in this evaluation.
I think from our point of view, as the department's point of view, I think we would want to make sure that in addition to whatever way we have of seeking feedback from clients, we have an independent way of doing that as well. So the evaluation that we do, and not just waiting until the formal one, but how do we build in a way of assuring the department or reassuring the department that not only are we getting information which is sought through our kind of formal network, but we're also finding an independent means of making sure that clients are giving us that information.
And, I mean, I've said we'll review our model, our processes. There was no attempt to skew responses here or anything like this. I mean, each question...
Not from your side.
I think we do need to look at that and make sure there's a means of us getting the information independently as well.
And who collect those feedback forms then?
They could either return them by post to the department or give them to one of our team who were there on the day.
But are there no interviews done with people?
Interviews are a huge part of this. We haven't included the interviews in the evidence base. I myself was out recently and spoke to 6 people, and everyone expressed a high degree of satisfaction.
Okay, Claire?
Thanks, Chair, for letting me, because I do have to run off. My experience certainly hasn't been a positive one of Steps to Success. In fact, I suppose one of the first real encounters I came across was where I had a constituent, and I have raised this before, who was put onto the programme because she was on Job Seekers Alliance for so long. But she actually took herself off the programme. She stopped. She stopped signing on to the dole because she didn't want to be on the programme, because she didn't like it that much. And I actually have an email in front of me here from her. She won't mind me reading it out. I'll not mention names. But you says that people from the outset are fully aware of the parameters of the programme and what will happen if they maybe don't attend the particular jobs or training that they've been put onto. And she says that she thinks that the programme needs to be made more transparent because she really didn't, understand it fully from the outset. She says, when I signed off the dole for 20 weeks the year before, I assumed, perhaps wrongly, that I signed off the STEPS programme, but they're still contacting her about it, and she's now scared to actually sign on to it again because she's going to be mandatory put onto that programme. And the reason she didn't want to be on that programme was because she had actually gone out and had sought her own training, accredited training at that. She had gone out and got her own voluntary work experience that would help that training. But there was no one that was, willing to say, well, actually, you are now on a training programme, you are now on relevant work experience in a career that you actually are quite content with. No, sorry, you have to go on our programme. That's not relevant. And that was her experience, and that was bad because she says that she was faced with a civil servant within a particular office who really didn't care from week to week what she was doing. It was a matter of box ticking, and her experience was entirely negative, and she has actually got herself quite anxious and quite upset about this whole thing, that she's not even now willing to sign on for a benefit that she's entitled to from our welfare state because of her negative experience of this programme, and that's wrong. It's entirely wrong. And I have heard those experiences from other people where they have gone out and sought their own opportunities because it's what they want to do. They want to be the driving force behind their careers and their training and experience, but this programme didn't allow it because it's mandatory, and this programme overrid anything that she wanted to do.
Well, those are the sorts of issues that I think, first of all, that we would like to be picking up. If that's coming through in the feedback that we're getting and review, but we need to be picking up those issues. But also, if you want us to kind of look at individually the issues that you have raised, I'm more than happy to do that, because there's also, not only when I talked about actually getting feedback in terms of how clients are participating, or what their view of participating in STEPS, I'm also very interested in getting feedback in terms of how we as an employment service are engaging with our clients. So if there are some specific issues that you want to raise, please do that through me, or tell your contact to kind of do that through me. But those are the sorts of issues that we would need to address if we have some mechanism for making sure we're getting to hear those examples, so that we can then bring those into discussions with the lead contractors, and also with our, if it's a separate issue about how the client was referred to the programme and whether that was appropriate or not, that's a separate issue and something which we could look into for you.
It's really just based on the current parameters of the programme. Like as I said, she has gone off and got her own training, she's got her own work experience, which is relevant to that particular training. But to be signing on to JSA to get that benefit every week, she has to go into the Steps to Success programme, and that overrides the training that she has sought for herself. So if I were to come to you now, would there be opportunity within the current parameters that she could almost put the Steps to Success programmes?
Could I, without knowing the specifics of what you're asking, I would be very keen to look into that in detail. If you want to kind of give that information to me, we can certainly, and I think that probably would involve me liaising with our local offices and our staff on the front line, our employment service staff, to see how that all fits together. But if you're happy to put that through to me, I will look into it. I couldn't give you an answer on that specifically at the minute.
I'm just kind of keen to understand that within the current parameters of the programme, our Steps to Success programmes prioritised over other programmes that maybe candidates themselves may seek out?
No, there would.
If they're on Job Seekers.
If they're on Job Seekers Allowance, and as you know, as I mentioned earlier on, if they're on Job Seekers Allowance and their being on the benefit, their first engagement would be through our employment service front line, and we would work with the client as much as possible to avail of whatever opportunities there may be, training or employment opportunities that there would be. So there's a kind of there's a period of time before they become mandated onto the programme, and some of those things that you're talking about may well have been. We could perhaps have addressed those during that time. if those aren't addressed during that initial 12 months and somebody then still hasn't found work, the programme should be another opportunity to help that person find and explore what other options there might be, and the building of an individual plan for the client and what we talked about earlier, making sure it's tailored to their individual needs, means that those sorts of issues should be addressed. So if they're not being addressed, I'd kind of like to know, how do we deal with that?
Well, in this case, she had been on job seekers for, up to that year where where it became mandatory.
Okay.
She maybe got the work experience and the training maybe, I'd say 7-8 months into that. So she was doing that 4 months and then it was triggered because of the year. And then she was pretty much told, no, you have to do the step to success or you're going to be sanctioned if you don't. To the end that she just couldn't do it all. It wasn't physically possible for her. So she gave up.
There is always going to be an option to defer for up to 90
and she
days.
did that as well, yeah.
And that is something that the employment service advisors will look at very carefully. But without having all the background to that individual's case, it's hard for us to deal with specifics.
Yeah, but just to even clarify the policy, when it comes to that year, she will be mandated to steps to success, and that will be mandatory that she's on that, overriding everything else that's going on in her life, and if she's not, she's going to be sanctioned.
It depends what you mean by the overriding, and that's where we would need to kind of know the details. Yes,
if she doesn't participate in the programmes, then she's going to be sanctioned.
Yes, if somebody is in receipt of job seekers allowance and has not moved into employment in the first year, then they would be mandated onto the programme. And the mandating onto the programme is because it is another opportunity to provide some sort of help to the client that hasn't been available or they haven't been able to move into work beforehand. In terms of overriding everything else, I'm not really sure what that means, and so we would need to kind of look at what the circumstances were, and we need to kind of involve the details in terms of the office that your client was going to. So that's the sort of thing we need to look into in detail. But yes, you're right, the first 12 months is really about what opportunities are there available to help the client move into work, training or whatever it is, before they get to a point wherever they would be mandated onto the Steps to Success programme, and then Steps to Success is another option to try and help clients move into work. But there is a point at which it does become mandatory.
And so, sorry to labour the point here, but I think it's just, if and this can happen because it's obviously real people's lives, but they can be on job seekers allowance for 11 months and then all of a sudden get training and work experience in the beginning of that 12th month, and then at the end of that 12th month they're then mandated on to Steps to Success. So Steps to Success does become the priority.
Yes.
And it may not be of any interest to that particular person.
You mean because of what might have happened in the 12th or 11th month just leading up to the programme? I mean, that's what I mean about the kind of detail that we would need to go into. I would need to have a discussion with our employment service advisors about that sort of example in terms of kind of our approach. How would we normally advise? What is the advice that we would give? And I would like to think it is very much should be a kind of collaborative partnership between our frontline advisor and that client to say, that, and also our frontline advisor should be very familiar with what has happened with that individual as they have progressed. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise to somebody that something is coming up at 11 months. But that's the sort of level of detail. I can look into that if you want to share that with me.
No, I do appreciate it, and I think we need that flexibility in the policy in itself moving forward, and that discretion almost element to it, which right now we don't have.
Well, I would look into that for you if you want to.
Okay, folks, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, members, moving on. Any other business? Members, we had a report from the LCM earlier this morning. Our committee staff very efficiently have also produced a hard copy.
Tend to agree with the report.
The report.
Tend to agree.
Are you content that the report of the LCM this morning?
Yeah.
Which means we don't have to come back for a special meeting on Monday?
Yeah.
Good.
Members content?
Agree, Vincent.
Okay, thank you.
Good work.
Members, any other business?
Nope.
No other business, date, time, place. Next meeting, 11th. That'll be next Wednesday, the 9th of March.
Just looking right in.
That's right.
Well done.
Thank you.
Sorry.
This is